Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. When I looked at the Reed Sheppard decision, I always felt, like I said, like two things could be true. Is that one, kind of made sense for him to come back, but also probably not realistic. Now, why did I always feel, maybe more than anyone else in the media, that it made sense for him to come back? As I've said a million times, and we won't spend too much time on this because we have talked about it plenty, but I always felt like with Reed Sheppard, it made sense because in the NIL era, and true NIL, I'm not talking about that fake NIL, I'm talking about name, image, likeness. Reed Sheppard, maybe more than any college athlete in the small NIL era, was set to make a crap ton of money by returning to college. Because obviously, look, first of all, there is the collective money. We know that Mark Pope in day one was given $4 million basically in salary to use on his basketball roster for next year. But two, because Reed Sheppard is a Kentucky kid, a Kentucky star, a Kentucky high school legend, a legend after 1 year in college basketball, he was going to have NIL opportunities locally that were totally unique to him and really totally unique pretty much anywhere in college basketball. Every major local outlet wanted a piece of him. I'm sure he would have gotten national endorsements as well. Now, when you compare 1 year of NIL to a 4-year guaranteed NBA contract, I understand the number isn't the same. But I thought when you factored in the money he could make in college, with the idea of him being the face of the Kentucky rebirth and revolution under Mark Pope, I thought it was at least appealing. But at the same time, what I would also say is this, and I said this on last night's show. I said that basically as time went on, once you removed yourself from the Mark Pope press conference on Sunday, the further we got away from that, the less likely I felt like he was coming back. I felt like, look, there's a lot of money to be made. He's going to make more money in endorsements as the star of Kentucky basketball than he would as the 9th pick of the Houston Rockets next year or the 11th pick of the Portland Trail Blazers. But as we got further away from that Mark Pope press conference, I really started to wonder, okay, has the decision been made? Because you think about it, right? Season ends. First reaction is we can't end like that. We have to come back and do it again. Then John Calipari leaves, and you'll want to see who the next head coach is. Then the next head coach happens to be a Kentucky legend who also happened to be your father's former roommate on a national championship team. And it felt like there was a moment there Sunday for Reed to burst out of the wall like the Kool-Aid man and say, I'm coming back. We didn't get that on Sunday. I was kind of sitting there watching the Mark Pope press conference wondering if it was coming. He didn't come back. It didn't happen on Sunday. Monday's quiet. Tuesday's quiet. Clearly, Mark Pope is prioritizing putting a staff together, working the portal, all that. And the further away you got, the more it felt like it was probably a little bit unlikely that he was going to return. And so now he's out. We'll take your comments. By the way, always feel free to drop comments in the YouTube comment section. We'll get to them momentarily. But at the same time, Reed Sheppard is officially gone. I think there's two ways to look for it. The Kentucky part of things, the legacy part of things, but then also what it means for Mark Pope's rebuild. From the Kentucky part of things, listen, we got a lot of Kentucky fans in the chat watching right now. You guys have better perspective than I do on what Reed Sheppard's legacy is at the University of Kentucky. But he's obviously a guy that was a high school legend. I think it's important to note he's a guy that it's worth noting could have gone to one of these big prep schools anywhere in America, the Montverdes, the this, the that, the whatever, you know what the prep schools are. And he could have gone and done one of those. He could have gone to Montverde, to IMG, to whatever. He stayed at North Laurel High School in Kentucky, led his team all the way through his senior year, his high school buddies, then goes to Kentucky and just blows away any expectations. Okay, listen, we could sit here in hindsight and pretend, oh, you know, we all knew this was coming. We knew how good. Nobody saw this coming with Reed Sheppard. I don't have the 24/7 sports recruiting rankings in front of me, but I don't know anybody that was like, that's a one and done dude that's going to be probably a top 10, maybe a top 5 pick come June. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody had that on their radar. And what he did in 1 year at Kentucky was incredible at a time when there was a lot. Listen, now that the Calipari's era is over, that's one thing. But throughout going into the season, there was a lot of negativity. And I think he was kind of the face of a lot of positive things during this season. A lot of great moments. The Mississippi State buzzer beater. You go through and you look at not only the Mississippi State buzzer beater, he went basically toe for toe with Dalton Knecht at Thompson-Boling Arena final day of the season as Kentucky beats Tennessee. So there were so many great memories. It sucks that it ended like the way that it did against Oakland in the NCAA tournament. But in 1 year, freshman All-American, national freshman of the year. There's too many All-American teams to follow, but I know he made some All-American teams. Just a great ambassador, great kid for Kentucky. Now, I do think the other interesting element of this is what it means for Mark Pope's rebuild. Now, to be clear, again, the further we got into this week, the less likely I really kind of thought it was that Mark Pope was going to be able to retain him. But at the same time, now what has become abundantly clear, we're starting over from scratch when Mark Pope, with this Mark Pope era, okay? And I thought it would have been cool for Reed Sheppard. I don't blame him. I'm not saying to turn down millions. I'm not saying that's what I would have advised him to do if I was his father or advisor. But it is interesting. I always thought, how cool would it be? You go back to that pre-Calipari era, the glory days of the 90s. A lot of Kentucky kids on that roster. To have a Kentucky kid leading the new era under Mark Pope, former Kentucky player, thought that would have been cool. Also think if Reed Sheppard had come back, we're probably talking about him as the preseason national player of the year next season. You average 14 and a half, whatever it was, 15 a game, 4 boards, 5 assists, as essentially a sixth man under John Calipari. Put him in that Mark Pope system, and I think he's probably the preseason national player of the year. But he decides to move on, and now for Mark Pope, it's going to be a completely clean slate. I think there's, at this point, a very realistic possibility that we now have 0 players from the John Calipari era retained by Mark Pope. We've seen Dillingham, Reed Sheppard, and Justin Edwards declare. We've seen Aaron Bradshaw officially transfer. DJ Wagner is in the portal. Adu Thiero is in the portal. Agana Anyenso goes pro. Trey Mitchell, Antonio Reeves run out of eligibility. So bluntly, we'll see what happens, but it feels to be, Jordan Burks, I guess, is still there. But we'll see if he stays. We'll see if Adu Thiero ends up coming back. We'll see if DJ Wagner ends up coming back. But realistically, by the way, Joey Hart committed to Ball State today. I kind of forgot he was on the team. No disrespect. It's just the truth. I just bring it up to say I think we're getting a completely clean slate with the Mark Pope era. I think it would have been great for Mark Pope to be able to retain Reed Sheppard. I think if you retain Reed Sheppard, maybe some of the other guys decide to come back with him. But now that he's gone, it is a fresh start for Mark Pope, and we know that Mark Pope is getting to work. We're going to talk about Liam McNeely in just a minute, the 5-star McDonald's All-American. But it sounds as though Kentucky has been in contact with him. I saw Mark Pope is on the road recruiting. My assumption is Liam McNeely is one of the guys that he's going to visit. We know about some of the transfers that Kentucky has connected with. So for Mark Pope, it's officially time to get to work. Because at the end of the day, Reed Sheppard is going. I'm not surprised, but this is going to be a true rebuild. Now, the great thing is this is the portal NIL era. Pretty much anything can happen. You can retain and flip a roster pretty much at will. But I just bring it up to very simply say that this is going to be a completely fresh start for the University of Kentucky. And should mention, as you see on the ticker, make sure to be following Torres on UK for all your Kentucky needs, because boy, oh boy, oh boy, y'all got what? You got 2 players on the roster. If you include Travis Perry, the freshman, Colin Chandler, the kid who just committed, it means you got about 9, 10, 11 spots to fill. There's a lot of great places that cover Kentucky basketball. Make sure you're following Torres on UK.